Video from my November 28th dive on the Yukon. This was a combination penetration and scootering dive. Here's where we penetrated. This is towards the stern of the boat. We entered in through this somewhat small opening, and our plan was to go down a couple of levels, then veer towards the bow. But when we try to go through this second opening here, you can see there's a rope that's sort of blocking our path. So what we ended up doing was hooking a left at this higher level, and then going through the small sort of courtyard area that you can see here. You'll get another perspective of this when you see the panning shot of the boat as I'm flying by on my scooter. We zigzagged up and down, went down a couple of levels, and this was really just to sort of practice the fundamentals of wreck penetration. We ran a reel. My dive buddy Ross was in charge of the reel, and I followed behind, attempting to document the best that I could our journey. The Yukon is sitting on its side. It's on its port side, about a 45-degree angle, and it does make for some very interesting perspective changes because everything's just sort of tilted to the side. Here you can see that there are several large openings that have been cut that you can pretty much go from one side of the boat to the other. I had some time after the penetration, and so I thought I would just swim around the outside and get a couple of shots. This was a idea that I had to swim down the length of the barrel of the guns to see if I could get kind of a cool perspective. I think it came out pretty well. I had to get some video of the flags. The American flag's on top, and I believe it's a Marine Corps flag below. This is the rudder around the backside of the boat, and here is where the props were attached. You can see one sticks out fairly well, and as I pan down, the other's really quite buried in the sand. Both of these would have been buried in the sand had it landed the proper way. I also came across this little sheep's crab. Maybe it's a decorator crab. It's hard to tell at this size. I always think it's kind of cool to see these little guys on the wreck. So here's another attempt at scootering the length of the wreck. This time, I kept the scooter a little further back. The vertical visibility was easily 35 to 40 feet. The horizontal, I thought, was somewhat less, but it was still good viz for the Yukon. The warmer temps, as you can see, have completely stripped the Yukon of any of the metridium anemones that used to just cover it. They can't stand water that's in the 60s, which we've had constantly. The covering of strawberry anemones is also largely gone. You can still find patches here or there, but for the most part, it's pretty much a bare ship. As I'm sure you all know, it's a 366-foot long ship, and it took a little over 3 minutes to go through. Here's that opening that you saw us swim through before. We came from the right and then went up to the top. Here's scootering where the rudders are and the props. There's not a whole lot to see. I mean, this is the bottom of the boat. It's very smooth. But I thought this was kind of a cool shot to give you some scale. Here's a video of my dive buddy Ross trying the scooter out. I'm sure his wife is going to kill me because I think he wants one now. We both had a good time. We took turns just doing laps. This is my last lap of the last dive of the day. I came up to about 60 feet, which is basically the upper edge of the boat. And I thought I'd get some video just of the growth. You can see there's some bull kelp, a lot of kelp bass. There's blacksmith and half moon that really cover the top of the wreck. It was a beautiful set of dives, and I'm glad I had the opportunity.